Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Delighted to see you, Dame Deanna. We've been teasing and promoting all morning the Home Secretary, but she decided not to come and you've taken her place.
Well, I'm not sure what happened there, but I was always going to come and do the media round this morning. So
well, it was certainly not always.
Okay.
You're fantastic. It certainly wasn't the case for all of yesterday, but so be it. These things, of course, happen. What are you guys announcing today?
So we're announcing a new set of proposals around vetting of police officers, those officers who are a risk to the public and to their colleagues. At the moment, there isn't a way of removing them, of dismissing them from the Office of Police Constable. So this is about a bespoke way of identifying those officers who can't hold their vetting because of the background checks that are made and making sure that there is a swift, easy but fair way of removing them from the police service. That hasn't ever happened before, and I think the public will be quite shocked to know that.
On the topic of Ukraine peace talks, Marco Rubio's pulled out of talks. That's led to David Lammy to then pull out of talks. What's going on?
Well, as I understand it, David Lammy hasn't pulled out of the talks. He's hosting the talks. And, of course, this country has a clear commitment to getting peace in Ukraine. President Zelensky is committed to peace. We need President Putin to step up, to have that ceasefire, to commit to the peace talks. The government has recently announced another £330 million to support Ukraine in terms of particularly new drones to help them in their fight. So the talks will be going ahead today, but I'm not able to provide any further comment on that. Those negotiations have to carry on.
Our understanding is now at a lower level, and that Foreign Secretary and Secretary of State level won't be attending. But I guess we'll see later on in the day. Wanted to talk to you about the Supreme Court decision last week. The Prime Minister said yesterday, it was the first time we'd heard from him since it, that a woman is a female adult, and I actually welcome the judgment, the Supreme Court judgment. It gives real clarity. He didn't in any way mention that he'd been wrong in the past, nor did he apologise. Should he have done so?
Well, what I know about the Prime Minister is that he always follows the rule of law. And I think the Supreme Court, with their decision last week, set out very clearly what the Equality Act of 2010 actually means in terms of biological sex, not legal sex. And I think that's really helpful. And I think it deals with the fact there's been this confusion over the last few years about this issue.
A confusion that I think he has in large part contributed to. There's lots of quotes I could read you, but I think this one sums it up. He told The Times in 2022, a woman is a female adult. In addition to that, trans women are women. And that's not just my view, that is actually the law. That statement is wrong.
Well, it is wrong, actually, because the Supreme Court said very clearly last week that it is around biological sex. So we know that a woman is an adult female, adult human female. That's what the law says. It's biological sex. And that clarity, I think, is helpful to everybody. The NHS, policing, schools and education, we all need to have that clarity now so we can move forward and put in place the measures that will respect that. And equally, I think we do need to be respectful of those individuals, trans individuals, and making sure that they are supported and they have the services that they need too.
Absolutely right. I guess I come back to that point. You said that there was great confusion. I think that statement makes clear that the Prime Minister, a person in a great leadership position, even when Leader of the Opposition, contributed to that.
Could I just say to you there that, in fact, we've only been in power since last July. For 14 years, the previous government did not take steps to actually deal with that confusion. So I do think it is a little rich of the current Leader of the Opposition to be pointing the finger at the Prime Minister, who has been very clear now that what the law says. So I do think for 14 years, the previous government, if they wanted to, they could have sorted this out.
That might be true, but the Leader of the Opposition today, I don't think, has ever hidden from this issue. So I don't think it's rich of her personally. But if she was here...
She was a member of the previous government, though, a senior member for many years, and had strong views. I agree with you on this. She set her case out very strongly. But that does not mean that the fact that the previous government didn't take steps to deal with this...
And if she was here, if Rishi Sunak was here, if David Cameron was here, if any number of those people were here, I'd be pressing them on this. But they're not. You're a member of the current government.
Yeah.
You said the Prime Minister likes to follow the law. Where's leadership? Where is coming out in front, owning up to your mistakes and apologising to the damage that you might have done?
Well, I think we're now very clear what the law says and what the 2010 Act, which the Labour government obviously brought in around this issue. So I think what I'm really interested in now is how we move forward and how we protect women. We've always been very clear about protecting women-only spaces. That's always been Labour's position on this. But I think what's very helpful is the Supreme Court judgment, providing that clarity about what the Equality Act in 2010, which Labour introduced, actually means in terms of biological sex. That's something I've always supported. So I want to be very clear about that as well.
And you don't begrudge that the Prime Minister didn't support it?
I think, as I've said, there was confusion for a number of years on this issue, and I think what's helpful now is that we are all very clear about what this means and going forward, what this will mean for single-sex services, for what the NHS and for me as the policing minister, what this means for policing. In terms of, I was talking to a senior police officer yesterday, and we were talking about strip searching, and we were talking about the need for changing rooms that meet the needs of males and females and those people who identify as trans. I
mean, you're saying that you've always been clear. Because I prepared to interview Yvette Cooper, I haven't checked your past statements, so I'll take you at your word on that.
I've always been very clear on this.
And I totally acknowledge that then. But your leader, the Prime Minister, hasn't been. He is a legal expert, and he couldn't interpret the law accurately. And it's ask a question about common sense, and he didn't take it accurately. And you're saying what's important now is that we move forward. Can you move forward if you don't acknowledge a mistake and, indeed, don't apologise for the damage it's done? Do you think that people like Rosie Duffield deserve an apology?
Can I say to you, I think as a woman, I'm not particularly interested in what men think or feel about issues around women's rights. What I'm interested in is the law. And what's really helpful from that Supreme Court judgment last week is the clarity it provides. And I think following the law is absolutely the right thing to do, and that's why I welcome what the Prime Minister has said about that is the law of the land, and that's now where we move forward.
You can criticise me, you can say my view is irrelevant or you like as a man.
I'm not personalising this, I'm just saying...
You're personalising it as it relates to the Prime Minister. He's the Prime Minister. Yeah. Whether he's a man or woman is irrelevant. Well, actually, his view is critically important on all topics.
It is, absolutely.
Just to say because he's a man, we can excuse his error here.
No, I'm not saying that.
That is what you said.
No, I'm saying that what I'm interested in is what the law of the land actually says. And the law of the land,
and you've
very clear
acknowledged
last
that the
week.
Prime Minister got this wrong. Can he move forward without acknowledging that?
I think there's been confusion about this, and that's why the case went to the Supreme Court. We know what happened in Scotland. We know that there was the need to get clarity, and that's why it went to the Supreme Court. So I think recognising that is quite important, and having that judgment from the Supreme Court, I think, is really helpful to the Prime Minister, to me as the policing minister, to the government, to the NHS, to policing. I think this is really important and helpful.
Because we're out of time, I mean, I still don't understand that you can't say that the Prime Minister should acknowledge an error. Well, I think the Prime Minister can speak for himself. He doesn't need me to speak for him. And he's been very clear that he accepts the law now as the Supreme Court set out last week. The final question I would say on this, because it comes back to something in your department, is some of the placards in the protests we saw over the weekend. Did they go as far as inciting violence in your eyes?
Well, that's a very interesting point, and I have raised that directly with the Metropolitan Police. I was told that the placards that were on social media that were being shown as at that protest on Saturday were historic. They were not the placards that were being used. Now, I've had this raised with me already this morning. I'm very happy to go and raise that again with the Metropolitan Police. And clearly, if there's incitement in those placards, threats to individuals, that has to be looked at. That's a matter for the police, but I'm happy to raise that.
Dame Diana Johnson, we thank you for stopping by. Good to see you this morning.